Hello there and welcome to tonight's video walkthrough lesson. Tonight's template is the social media planning template. So it's from the book that Tobes and I wrote called Web Marketing That Works, and I just want to take you for a quick run through how to use it. So you can download it at bluewiremedia.com.au/SMPT for social media planning template. So there's no opt-in for that. That link will take you directly there. So you can follow along at home if you download it and fill it out as you go, or watch the video and then take the time to work through it. Now, we've got two sides, and the front side looks like this. I'm going to get my head out of the way. What you'll actually see here is there's room for filling out this for two buyer personas. Tonight we're just going to go through one, so if I pop this over here, you're not going to actually be missing anything. So what we want to do is we want to work our way through this template, and what you'll see down the left hand side is we're going to look at tactics, who's watching or monitoring, what happens in an emergency, which employees can and can't use social media, what technology you're going to use, and what success looks like. Now, we've done this deliberately because it spells tweets. It's an easier way to remember what you need to be focusing on. But let's kick it off with the tactics and strategy. So, what content will you publish? Actually, we'll backtrack. What we want to do here is write in the name of our buyer persona. So if you've watched the web strategy planning template video, then you'll know that we like to give our buyer personas a name. In Blue Wire's case, one of our buyer personas, certainly when we were an agency, was called Nicola. So what content are we going to publish? Well, this is up to you to fill out for your own business, of course, but some of the things that you might like to consider here is whether it's how-to information, whether it's inspirational, whether it's educational, etc., etc. So that's the type of content, and then we want to have a think about what social media channels will we use to promote this content. Now, chances are, certainly if you've been watching my stuff for a while, you would probably look to publish on LinkedIn, Facebook, maybe Instagram, maybe not, probably on your blog, probably with email marketing. So that's your opportunity to fill that section in. Then we've covered off the tactics and the strategy there. Next part, watching. So who is going to be monitoring what's going on with social media? Because just because you're not watching it doesn't mean things don't happen. A lot of people like to bury their head in the sand and say, I'm not on social media, my company is not on social media. Well, people are still talking about your company on social media. Therefore, you kind of are, whether you're paying attention or not. So that means we need to actually monitor what's going on. Now, there will be a who, a person. If you're a solo company, it's you. If you're a bigger organization, it may well be your social media manager, your marketing officer. You decide who monitors that. So let's just, whoops, wrong color. Let's just assume, say it's a social media manager. And of course that person will have a name. So just populate this planning template with that person's name. And the next part of this is, how are you actually going to monitor it? What tools are you going to use? There's quite a few that I recommend, but the ones that I use myself, I use Talkwalker alerts to monitor brand name mentions on the internet, like Blue Wire Media, Adam Franklin, etc. If you've got certain products, you would put your product name in there. And then I like to use Mention. So that's an app that tracks all the different social media mentions on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. So that's just by way of an example. You may have paid monitoring services, you may choose different ones, totally up to you, but go ahead and fill that in. Make a bit more room here. How about that? Okay, there we go. Next part down, what happens in an emergency? So there's two sort of types of emergency, but we're going to go into more detail on that with our negative comments response template video walkthrough. But at a high level, there's negative comment and then there's a crisis. We'll talk about more about the definitions and all of that on the appropriate video walkthrough for the negative comments response template. But who's going to respond if there's negative comments? Chances are it's your social media manager. But in a crisis, that may be different. That may well be you, the CEO, or maybe the head of head of HR. You have to decide, because when an emergency happens, you kind of want a very clear plan of attack to address that. And talking about the plan of attack is going to happen in the negative comments response template video walkthrough. So there we go. We've identified who is in charge of responding for a negative comment and a crisis. Then we want to have a look at who is authorized to use social media at your company. If you're if you're an open type of mindset company, then, which is what I recommend, you would probably have all of your team able to use social media. But I know there's a lot of businesses that like to have a high degree of control, perceived control, over who uses it. So it's part of their employment agreements that you either can or can't. There is going to be a future training, and there's a template called the Social Media Guidelines template that's going to go into more detail about 3 different types of social media guidelines that you may choose to implement at your company. They're editable, you can download them, but I'll do a full video template walkthrough for that. But let's just say it's all staff. Full-time and contractors. Again, just by way of an example, you fill that in for yourself. Here we go. And now, what technology are we going to use? And which URLs have you secured? So this is, again, getting pretty basic, pretty simple, but you do need to make sure that you've got the appropriate blog, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. You've got your custom URLs sorted out. If you don't yet, go ahead and just reserve them. Make sure that hopefully they're somewhat consistent across the company, but just document them here as well, because as a document, people in your organization are going to see this, and they can then be all on the same page so they know what's going on. And finally, the S for success. What are your goals and how do you define success? So just write them in here in the bottom 2 lines. The goals might be to get to 1,000 followers on Instagram and a personal network of maybe 5,000 people on LinkedIn, which then, the goal has to be sort of more than just social media goals, but how that flows onto other parts of the business, which might contribute to, say, 500 email subscribers. For example, I like to track social media followers and connections, and also track the metric of email subscribers, because that's kind of like the next step of the nurturing journey, and then customers and revenue. So that's how I simplify the metrics, but that's kind of what I'm tracking for our own situation at Blue Wire. Alright, so that is the first side. The first side of the social media planning template. Page 2 is where we then look at the content publishing schedule. So what you'll see here down the left is just all the different platforms not every single one that exists, but the main ones. So you've got your blog, your Facebook, your Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, email marketing, podcast down the bottom, and then you've got Snapchat. I mean, depending on your company, you could put TikTok in there too, depending on who you're targeting, depending on the demographics and everything else. But they're the platforms. You don't have to be on all of them, but what I want you to do is actually just fill out what activity you're going to do. So for example, you might put an article on a blog, you might then share that article on Facebook and do an image post. On Instagram, you might then do a document. You might upload it as a document to LinkedIn. You might do a video post, like talking about that particular piece of content. Or you might do interviews, for example. There's so many different options of what types of activity that you do. It's entirely up to you. Email marketing, you might do a weekly newsletter. And a podcast, like an interview podcast, or maybe let's call it a solo show. So anyway, that's just some examples of the activity that you might pop in there. And then over on the right hand side here, we just want to document the frequency that we're striving to achieve. So we might look to do a weekly blog, a daily Facebook, daily Instagram, weekly LinkedIn, weekly YouTube, weekly email, etc., etc. And then all we need to do, which is most important to make sure we actually get the work done, is to track the activity completed. So it's a simple chart. You can actually just literally go in and fill them out or tick them off depending on how you want to do it. So you've got a visual representation of exactly how much content you've put out there in the world, and see if you're tracking against your goals. So there we have it. That is the social media planning template. And if you'd like to download that, remember it's just at this website here, SMTP. You can download that for free, no opt-in required. And you can edit that actually. You're more than welcome to take any of my marketing templates and build upon them, share them, co-brand them, use them commercially. They're our gift to be used. There's 33 in our book, and I hope you find them useful. I'm going to see you on the next video. Take care.